Take a look at how the press fawned all over President Obama's farewell speech, which was pretty awful. Take a look.
He was played off stage tonight by the Bruce Springsteen song Land of Hope and Dreams, and that nicely summarized a large part of his theme tonight.
I went back and watched the speech that got me thrilled physically, as everybody laughed at me for, because it did get me thrilled physically. He was soaring, and it was as good a speech as this, but of course it was before. This is after. And it's much harder to do it after.
There's never been anything like this. I mean, this was a rock and roll concert.
He shed a tear at one moment, I think, talking about his wife.
Michelle Obama. That message about, no American being more American than any other, I think is an important one.
All right, seriously, Chris Matthews, more thrills, more tingly feelings up your leg? Now, the Obama-loving media, they couldn't get enough, eating up every single word, and that's how it's been for 8 solid years. Now let's compare and contrast all of that to how the media reacted to President-elect Donald Trump's press conference earlier this week. It doesn't get more hypocritical, and it's all on tape for you to see for yourself.
Trump's behavior throughout his first press conference as president-elect raises some serious questions and implications for American democracy, and questions about how our institutions will deal with him.
We have a job. Our job is to figure out what's true or not. And insofar as that is being blurred, insofar as Trump is trying to equate fake news with good journalism that might have made a mistake, he's trying to create a post-truth environment.
The environment right now is so far from normal. We're so far from the norms of respect when it comes to the president or the president-elect talking, at least saying the right things about respecting the First Amendment.
I think the mood in that room was just generally stunned. You're used to seeing sparring at a presidential level press conference. This was more than that. This was more than heated. This was very confrontational. And the question is whether this will be the new norm. I think this has the potential to have a chilling effect.
What a glaring double standard. Now, you shouldn't be surprised by any of this. The media just cannot stand President-elect Donald Trump, especially after they all, remember, they openly mocked the idea that Donald Trump one day may become president. You may remember this. Take a look.
Donald Trump has been saying that he will run for president as a Republican, which is
election. Of the declared ones right now, Donald Trump.
President Obama will go down as perhaps the worst president in the history of the United States! Exclamation point at real Donald Trump. Well, at real Donald Trump. At least I will go down as a president.
Wow, pretty informative. And the media's love affair with President Obama is so deep that it doesn't end with him. Now take a look at Jimmy Fallon fawning over the First Lady, Michelle Obama. Remember, for the first time in my adult life, I am proud of my country. That Michelle Obama. Take a look.
Speaking of emotional, the speech last night from your husband, the president. I lost it. Yeah. I lost it at home. I was crying on my wife's shoulder, and I go, he's just the best man in the whole wide world. I mean, no way he could be a cooler human being than that guy. Thank you, Mrs. Obama, for being a strong, smart, independent woman, an activist, a style icon, and a great dancer.
My Michelle Amor, you're the only one that we...
Earlier today, the co-hosts of The View, they rolled out the red carpet for crazy Uncle Joe, Vice President Joe Biden and his wife Jill. Take a look.
In a country so divided right now, I still don't know anyone who doesn't have a soft spot for this man. He's just one of the realest people you'll ever meet in your lifetime.
You're like a rock star, you know that? You're a rock star.
The media is so biased, at this point, they're not even trying to hide this. Which brings me back to President-elect Donald Trump. Now, what he did at his news conference earlier this week, it was the single greatest beatdown of this abusively biased alt-radical left media in the history of the country. Now, Trump put the press on notice, put them on notice. He's not going to stand there and take this crap anymore. Watch this exchange with Jim Acosta from CNN.
Since you're attacking us, can you give us a question? Since you're no, Mr. President-elect.
Go ahead.
Mr. President-elect, since you are attacking our news organization, can you give us a chance?
Your organization.
You are attacking our news organization.
Your organization.
Can you give us a chance to ask a question, sir?
Go ahead.
Sir, can you state,
Quiet.
Mr. President-elect,
go ahead.
Can you state categorically?
She's asking a question. Don't
Mr.
be rude.
President-elect, can you give us a question?
Don't be
You're
rude.
attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude.
Can you give us a question?
I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
Wow, you are fake news. Then he lectured the president. That's not fair. All right, the media deserved every single bit of what Donald Trump gave them. Now, predictably, they're now trying to paint the president-elect, that is President-elect Trump, as the enemy of the First Amendment, which is so hypocritical because they did nothing when President Obama repeatedly attacked Fox News over the last 8 years. In fact, the president has personally gone after me so many times. And now CNN, learn from what I went through. Take a look.
In 2012, Latinos voted in record numbers. The next day, even Sean Hannity changed his mind and decided immigration reform was a good idea. Rudy Giuliani said, Putin is what you call a leader. Mike Huckabee and Sean Hannity keep talking about his bare chest, which is kind of weird. With respect to Sean Hannity, I didn't know that he had invited me for a beer. His opinion of me does not seem to be very high, but I'm always good for a beer. I'll put Mr. Burgess up against Sean Hannity. He'll tear him up.
I still offer that beer, and in the spirit of spreading the wealth, Mr. President, I'll pay for it. Celebration. Your 8 years are over. Now, no one in the mainstream media came to my defense after the president made those remarks and a lot more. Not that I would ever need or want them to defend me. If anything, they were probably cheering him on for what he did, attacking me and Fox News and Talk Radio and Rush Limbaugh and Mark Levin. So here is what it all comes down to. If the media wants to be fair in their coverage of President-elect Trump, then fine. But if they're not, well, they can expect plenty more of what the president-elect gave them earlier this week. Joining us now, syndicated columnist, host of the series Michelle Malkin Investigates on CRTV.com. Michelle Malkin, I watched the double standard. Part of me just wants to laugh, but then a part of me realizes for the rest of the country, journalism's dead. We have an informational crisis. What's your reaction?
Yes, and of course, you seem to have occupied rent-free space in President Obama's head for many years now,
I think it's
Sean.
like 15 times he
it.
mentioned me, something like that, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that you deserve a Golden Globe for all of these incredible clip reels that you've put together. I think it's a public service. These people need to have it in their faces and be reminded of their behavior and their media malpractice over the last 8 years. Good riddance to 8 years of Obama's drool bucket media, these fangirls and fanboys who literally ogled not just President Obama, but when he was a candidate. And as you pointed out in highlighting with Jimmy Fallon, they're fawning over Michelle Obama. And of course, those of us, you and I, Sean, and so many other stalwart critics and opponents and questioners and dissidents in conservative media were attacked for doing what those people in the mainstream media should have been doing. Do your jobs. Subject these political candidates to the same amount of scrutiny that you are now trying to compensate for with the incoming Trump administration. Only after Obama had done so much damage, Sean, did these people finally admit that, yes, we should have asked more questions. There is a very famous viral clip of Tom Brokaw and Charlie Rose on PBS, which we pay for, in which they cackle that they didn't vet Obama properly enough. There are admissions from the New York Times that they allowed the Obama administration to, quote, let the Obama administration rubber stamp and oversee the statements that were printed in the New York Times. It's shameful. There's David Brooks, who admitted that, he knew that Obama was lying to him about the stimulus, and he didn't say anything about it until 2 years later. Now these people realize that there should be a proper watchdog role for the press. Please.
Isn't there a lesson here in what we saw happen this week? The hyperventilating, the breathlessness, the wow, we got him. They thought they had him this week. That the Trump campaign should understand that they don't like him, they'll never like him, and their goal, and tell me if I'm bordering on paranoia, they want to destroy him. And they're waiting for the moment to jump. Whether it's small and insignificant, it doesn't matter. They will turn something into something bigger than it really is.
Yeah, it's going to be a long 4 years, Sean, but I think that over the course of the campaign, and this goes for all of the people on the right, you know, whatever they thought about any particular policy position or personnel choice that Trump had made, and certainly I have been vocal about when I liked or didn't like certain things he said or certain choices he made. And the difference, of course, is that over the course of the next 4 years, Sean, I know that you, just as we did during the Bush administration, will be very vocal when we're happy and we'll be very vocal when we're not. And the same thing could not, right? And the same thing could not be
$9.7 trillion debt increase over 10 years. What? I thought they're the party of limited government, balanced budgets.
That's right. And you know what? The Republican Party and the establishment have squandered the opportunities they've had before when they had control of 2 or 3 branches of government, and we will be on them like white on rice. And I'm sure that there are leftist socialists who are going to say that I just committed a microaggression right there. But we live in a different era now, and thank God for that.
All right, Michelle Malkin, good to see you. Congrats on the TV series. And coming up 1 week from today, the long nightmare that is Barack Obama, it's over. It's done. Donald Trump will be your president. Up next, we'll speak with Kellyanne Conway, and then later tonight.
Donald Trump is someone who's very insecure in his victory, and I understand why. Every day there are new developments, new shoes dropping, so to speak, that call into question the legitimacy of his win.
Hillary Clinton's campaign spokesperson questioning the legitimacy of Donald Trump's presidency. Why are so many Democrats determined to try and undermine the president-elect before he even takes office? I'll ask Democratic Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia that and more on this busy Friday news night. Straight ahead.
January 20th. After the inauguration ceremony, the historic night is just getting started. First, the Five gives us their take on all the big events. Then, Bret Baier weighs the Beltway reaction. Martha McCallum breaks down President Trump's first 100 days. And Bill O'Reilly gives us his no-spin take. Plus, the inaugural balls. Tucker Carlson is live at the big events. And Sean Hannity wraps up the night. The most watched, most trusted coverage of Inauguration Day is right here on Fox News Channel.
Reporters, I'm Matt Finn. Takata agreeing to pay a $1 billion penalty for defects with its airbags. The company also saying it will plead guilty to criminal wrongdoing. Prosecutors say Takata executives made fake test results about the safety of those airbags in order to sell them to automakers. The airbags can explode with too much force and have been linked to 16 deaths worldwide. Walmart and Sam's Club offering free health screenings tomorrow. Tests will cover a variety of things such as blood sugar levels, body fat, and vision. The screenings being offered at more than 5,000 locations nationwide. And if you want to live longer, try more spicy food. Researchers finding people who ate chili peppers had less heart attacks and strokes, helping them live 13% longer. I'm Matt Finn. Now back to Hannity.
Welcome back to Hannity. So just in 1 week from today, 7 days, President-elect Trump will be sworn in to be the 45th president of the United States. And for the first time in 10 years, Republicans will control the House, the Senate, and the White House. Joining us now, counselor to the president-elect, Kellyanne Conway, is with us. You know, when I go out and meet people, the person they ask about besides President-elect Trump the most is you. Everyone wants to know, what's Kellyanne like? And I'm like, is she as nice as she seems? I said, nicer. So,
thank you.
People are really happy.
Tell them I love them back, and this is a victory and a future shared by all, and we're just getting started.
The only thing to me that matters is that the agenda gets fulfilled. Walk us through these 100 days, what we call the first 100 days of the president-elect, and tell us what we can expect.
Yes. Sean, that is exactly why Donald Trump ran for president. I would submit to you it's why he won the presidency, because people know that he will make good on these promises, his plans. Because if he doesn't, it's just another typical politician promising to do things they don't intend. So he has these very specific plans on repealing and replacing Obamacare. A poll out just today shows that 65% of Americans want the ACA, Obamacare, repealed in part or in whole. It's a very high number. Folks feel really frustrated. We know their premiums are rising, their quality and choices are fewer, their access is less, and their frustrations are high. So making good on that repealing and replacing Obamacare is important. The president-elect and the vice president-elect had meetings on that this week. The legislative team had meetings on that this very week. This week, the Senate already took action toward repealing Obamacare. The president-elect is committed in so doing that those who have coverage will not be without coverage, that will get rid of that draconian penalty, basically that you're forced to buy government-run health care or pay a tax, pay a penalty. There will be health savings accounts for people, and there will be the ability to buy health insurance across state lines, a more patient-centric free market system. Also, he'll start building that wall with the intention of Mexico paying for it either now or later on as compensation. If the Congress can speed up the process by paying for it, terrific. You'll also see energy, unleashing energy. They'll start to do infrastructure. And he, of course, will get more serious about defeating radical Islamic terrorism and get very serious about rebuilding our military.
So vetting refugees, originalist justices, 7 brackets to 3, 15% corporate tax, repatriating multinational corporations, Obamacare gone, replaced with what you said, energy independence, that's going to be done.
Energy independence, which is also part of his. Oh, yes. Education's huge. He's got Betsy DeVos as his education secretary nominee. Sean, she looks at alternatives to conventional schooling systems, where charters and school choice, and certainly respecting homeschoolers. At the same time, respecting our back to basics curriculum and letting parents and local governments have more of a say of where children go to school and what is taught there. You mentioned something very important. You talked about the extreme vetting, and you talked about energy investment. These are also very specific solution-centric plans that President-elect Trump ran on. I think that the fact that he got specific was very important to voters, because that's what businessmen do. They're accountable for results and deliverables. They can't fudge the numbers. They can't just have a commission and kick the can down the road. They actually have to produce in a quarterly, monthly, weekly way. If you can tell me right now, I'll start the Jeopardy clock, what Hillary Clinton's message was in this election, other than Donald Trump bad and I'm not Donald Trump. His message was specific.
I can't tell you that.
His message was specific.
Let me ask this last question. What you're saying is he's going to keep all these promises, which I think is the key to political success, but I also think it's the change that the country needs. This is not a simple agenda. I do believe there'll be resistance along the way, especially with the Supreme Court and building the wall and vetting refugees and some of these other issues. What will he be able to do in the first hours as president to undo a lot of the damage Obama's done with executive orders?
So on Monday, January 3rd, President Donald J. Trump can sit down and basically rescind these executive orders, those that Obama put in very late in the game, with respect to the environment, mining. There are other regulations that we hear from business owners and employers constantly, Sean, that it's really the regulatory system that has a chokehold on them, that they can't retain talent and they can't hire American workers, they can't keep their factories here, they can't expand here. And you see the Trump effect already now during the transition. And the Trump effect happened again today here in Trump Tower, where the CEO of Lockheed Martin came, and then she went and announced that they will in fact reduce the price of the F-35s. The Trump effect has been to keep jobs here, factories staying here, and that when he sits down, he can actually rescind a number of these executive orders that have really hurt people. Remember, Barack Obama as president has been very fond of the executive order, and it's just the stroke of a pen, really, that allows President Trump to go more in line with what Americans expect. Energy is a key one. We hear from people, we've heard from these candidates right, left, and center. I'm for all of the above energy. What the heck does that mean? Great soundbite. But people say all the time, nothing is made in America anymore. And I will tell you that we have energy beneath our feet and off our shores. And Americans want us to develop that to reduce our dependence on foreign oil and also to stimulate our local economies, create jobs here at home. He's for coal, clean coal. He's for shale. He's for safe and effective hydraulic fracturing. It's just a very exciting time for us to rely more on Americans and American energy for our economic stimulation and growth.
Kellyanne, it's a bold agenda. If he follows up on all of these items that he talked about in the campaign and you're talking about now that he's been elected, that to me will shift the trajectory of the country. I'm going to love watching it. It'll be a fight. I'll be here fighting on TV and hopefully see you often, and I'll see you down in Washington next week.
You will see me often. And, Sean, it really is up to the Republican Congress as well.
That's true.
They're there. There's no more excuse of divided government.
Correct.
And they can do this. We've got the Republican governors, state legislatures. This is really the time to harness that and act
by the way,
more
we don't
like
need their $10 trillion debt limit increase either. Thanks a lot. They can keep that.
No.
All right, Kellyanne, good to see you, and we'll see you at the inauguration 1 week from today. Up next, why are Democrats trying to undermine the president-elect before he even takes office? I'll ask Democratic Senator Joe Manchin. Republicans are already making moves now today and yesterday to repeal Obamacare. Later, I'll speak with Congresswoman Marsha Blackburn, Congressman Louis Gohmert, and Congressman Jim Jordan. That and more tonight on Hannity. And welcome back to Hannity. So 1 week from today, Donald Trump will be sworn in as the 45th president of the United States. But many Democrats, they're still trying desperately to delegitimize Trump's big win in November. Now, this includes Clinton campaign spokesman Brian Fallon. He had this to say earlier today. Take a look.
Donald Trump is someone who's very insecure in his victory, and I understand why. Every day there are new developments, new shoes dropping, so to speak, that call into question the legitimacy of his win. First, it was with respect to Russian interference. And now, with respect to the FBI, we see that Jim Comey's actions are sufficiently questionable that the internal watchdog at DOJ thinks that they merit an independent review.
All right, Fallon is not the only Democrat trying to make excuses for President-elect Trump's win. Now, we have a handful of congressional Democrats that are now boycotting the inauguration. That includes California Congresswoman Barbara Lee. She released a statement that reads, in part, Donald Trump has proven that his administration will normalize the most extreme fringes of the Republican Party. On Inauguration Day, I will not be celebrating. I will be organizing and preparing for resistance. Also today, in a pre-recorded interview set to air on Meet the Press this weekend, Congressman John Lewis of Georgia says he doesn't see Donald Trump as a legitimate president. So why are some Democrats trying so hard to smear the presidency of Donald Trump? He hasn't even taken office. Joining us now, a Democrat, a senator from the great state of West Virginia, Joe Manchin, is with us. Senator Manchin, thanks for being with us. Let me start with what you have done.
Hey, Sean, it's always good to be with you.
You've had conversations with Donald Trump, correct?
Yes, I have.
And how have they gone?
And they've gone great. It's refreshing. He's reached out, which is what you would think. A president-elect coming in, reaching across the aisle, wanting to get things done, seeing if we can find people that will work together, move things forward, put the country first, put the campaign behind us, put the election behind us, put the Democrats and Republicans behind us, and let's bring America to the forefront. I really believe that's what he's trying to do.
Well,
he's reached out to me. We've had good conversations.
We still have 95 million Americans out of the labor force, 43 million Americans on food stamps, 50 million in poverty, and the lowest home ownership rate in 51 years. Those are real problems. I assume, especially because you're from West Virginia, on energy, that you want to see these regulations, executive orders go away. You want coal mining, you want fracking, I assume. You want drilling, you want energy independence. Is that a good guess?
Yes, and I've spoke to President-elect Trump about that. You know, we want a balance between the economy and the environment. We don't want dirty water. We don't want dirty air. He doesn't want dirty water. He doesn't want dirty air. What we've looked at, and I told him, I think that the things that West Virginians are upset about is that with the laws that we have to protect our environment, they have doubled down and put extra laws. Basically, it's a redundancy, a nuisance type of thing that just basically just breaks the will of people to want to be in business.
Yeah.
That's not what an energy policy should be.
Senator, you're an anomaly. I just read what Hillary Clinton's spokesperson said. I just told you what Barbara Lee is doing. I've known John Lewis from my time broadcasting in Atlanta. I like him a lot, respect him a lot. I think what he's doing is harmful. So my question is, what are the things that you see you agree on? Would you agree that the promises, for example, of Obamacare were never kept to keep our doctors' plans and save money? Cost per family has gone up $5,400 in 8 years.
Well, there is problems, and I've said that, and I'm willing to repair the problem. Sean, where I differ, I've said I'm willing to work and sit down and work through in a professional manner, in a grown-up manner, to basically find the fixes that we need. I'm not voting for repealing it until I see a replacement and we can repair it. I think that's a reasonable approach.
As far as I know, up till now, you are the only Senate Democrat that will vote to confirm Senator Sessions, a colleague, as the new Attorney General. I see this every 4 years, and it's my biggest complaint. Your party, the Democratic Party, every 4 years, without fail, and I've chronicled it on this program, will play the race card. It was played against Senator Sessions, in spite of what I think is a pretty incredible record on his part. When you see that happen, how do you feel about your party?
When I see politics dive to that degree, and you know, and like you say, whether it's on my side of the aisle, the Democrat side of the aisle, and Sean, let me make it very clear. I'm a West Virginia Democrat. We're a little bit different than what you would look at the national Democrats, and I think maybe our West Virginia Republican friends are too. Don't get caught up in all this hullabaloo. But the bottom line is that Jeff Sessions is someone I've known for 6 years. If and we've had many conversations on many things, worked on legislation. I have never detected 1 ounce of racism in Jeff or bigotry. I've never seen that. And for that to come out of the woodwork, and I said, I can only judge a person on how I know him.
Yeah.
And now, if you want to say you're against Jeff Sessions because he's extremely conservative or too conservative for you, that's fine. But don't make something up that maybe's not there. And I listened and watched his testimony, and the people that came and testified on his behalf. All right. Those were those against him, but those in favor of him. I just don't believe that, and I think Jeff's a good man. I think he'll do a good job.
All right, Senator. Always good to have you. Thank you for being with us. And coming up next tonight on this busy Friday news night here on Hannity.
It'll be repeal and replace. It will be essentially simultaneously.
All right, you heard him say it. Obamacare will be repealed and replaced under the new administration. Today, the House took a very important step to make all this happen. Up next, I'll speak with Congresswoman Marsha Blackburn, Congressman Louis Gohmert, and from the Freedom Caucus, Jim Jordan. Straight ahead.
Mexico, in some form, and there are many different forms, will reimburse us, and they will reimburse us for the cost of the wall. That will happen.
And President-elect Trump says Mexico will, in fact, pay for the wall. Later on tonight, I go one-on-one. That's right, a shootout with Geraldo Rivera. Straight ahead.
Obamacare is a complete and total disaster. It'll be repeal and replace. It will be essentially simultaneously. It will be various segments, you understand, but will most likely be on the same day or the same week, but probably the same day, could be the same hour. We're going to have a health care that is far less expensive and far better.
That was President-elect Donald Trump promising that Obamacare will be repealed and replaced under his administration. This morning, the president-elect, he took to Twitter to reinforce that promise. He tweeted out, quote, "The Unaffordable Care Act will soon be history." Also today, the U.S. House of Representatives, they voted 227 to 198 to pass a budget resolution that is a critical step towards repealing Obamacare. Here now with reaction, Tennessee Congresswoman Marsha Blackburn, Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan, Texas Congressman Louis Gohmert. Congresswoman, we'll start with you.
Sure.
A lot of Americans say, why haven't Republicans rallied around one plan by this point? I know there are 9 out there. I know they were similar. But why hasn't the plan been written yet? And Paul Ryan, about a week and a half ago, said, well, we'll do it sometime this year. He has since adjusted that.
What we have, Sean, is you can go back to 2010 to the Blair House Healthcare Summit, and we pretty much laid out our plan then. Across state line purchase of health insurance, which is my legislation. And yes, indeed, there are components. There are many different plans. What we want to make sure is we pull everything we possibly can off in reconciliation and then follow it with a legislation that is going to open up the health insurance marketplace and is going to simplify delivery of health care and do it in a more cost-effective manner. And I think once we get Secretary Price at HHS and we are able to begin some of the unravel and then the replacement component parts, we want to do it right. And we're going to do it in a thoughtful manner.
You're with the Freedom Caucus, Jim Jordan, and I see you're here, Mark Meadows, who is now, I guess, the head of your Freedom Caucus, or the chairman of the Freedom Caucus. He actually said this is likely to fail in the Senate. You don't think this is going to pass in the Senate?
No, the repeal will pass, but some of the replacement mechanisms and policies, they're going to require the 60-vote threshold to get those through. So that's a little harder. But the most important thing, Sean, is we actually repeal it. That's step one. The president-elect is exactly right. Healthcare will be better and cost less when we get rid of Obamacare. So let's make sure we keep our promise to the American people. Today was just step one. There's a long process to come. Let's do it as quick as we can, but let's do it all. Every mandate, every regulation, every single tax has to go. Then we'll have a chance to have the market work, and that's part of the replacement, is simply getting rid of the repeal, or getting rid of Obamacare with repeal, so you can have a market work and bring down costs and provide affordable health care to the families across this country.
Louis Gohmert, a lot of conservatives are writing, calling my radio show, and tweeting out they're concerned about 3 things: $1 trillion infrastructure without a plan to pay for it. They're concerned about increasing the debt over the next 10 years, $9.7 trillion. And they're concerned at some remarks Paul Ryan made last night, promising an illegal immigrant that he wouldn't allow immigration officials to deport her. And in other words, not following the law. That's the current law of the land. What is your reaction to that? Are you hearing the same thing on your end?
Well, yes, but the number one thing we do first is repeal Obamacare. We can multitask. I know there were Democrats who were having trouble with that, but we can multitask. We can repeal Obamacare. We can go ahead and let a wall start being built. And I do think that Mexico is ultimately going to realize that once we cut off the flow of drugs back and forth and the people that are paying the drug cartels to come across, then Mexico quits being such a corrupt country with all the drug cartels, and they're going to want to pay us because they'll zoom up to being not 62nd in the number of economics.
Let me ask the question, are any of you
competition.
3 concerned about the issues that I have raised that I'm hearing from my listeners and viewers? $1 trillion infrastructure without a plan to pay for it. Now, repatriation money, energy money, savings, Obamacare, all of that can add to it. But should we have a plan to pay for the infrastructure trillion? What about the $10 trillion, $9.7 trillion in the debt increase for over 10 years? And thirdly, Paul Ryan saying last night, this woman's not going to leave, even though that is a law of the land. I'm hearing a lot about it. Any of you 3 hearing about this?
Well, let me tell you, I got assurances. I got assurances that, look, this is a vehicle, Louis. This 9.7 or however many trillion in this budget forget about it. This is a vehicle.
You agree with that?
And they promised me they will not end up beating us over that. No, you already agreed to these numbers. Marcia hasn't, Jim hasn't, I haven't. The Freedom Caucus.
Okay, real quick, Marcia.
Yeah, you know, one of the things when we talk about infrastructure that people are saying is, look, we want you to look at broadband expansion, rural broadband. That is the primary infrastructure issue, and there are ways for us to address that. And I think we will do that, and it will not have a negative impact to the debt. We have to get the debt and the deficit, the annual deficit and the accrued debt dealt with.
All right, guys. Good to see you all. And we'll see. I'll go see you guys when I'm in Washington next week and the week after. Coming up next tonight, right here on Hannity.
Mexico, in some form, and there are many different forms, will reimburse us, and they will reimburse us for the cost of the wall. That will happen.
President-elect Donald Trump keeping his promise that Mexico will pay for the border wall. Up next, I go one-on-one with our own Geraldo Rivera straight ahead tonight, right here on Hannity.
Mexico, in some form, and there are many different forms, will reimburse us, and they will reimburse us for the cost of the wall. That will happen, whether it's a tax or whether it's a payment, probably less likely that it's a payment, but it will happen.
President-elect Trump, he says Mexico will pay for the wall, but Mexican's president, Enrique Peña Nieto, he said the country will not be paying for it. Watch this.
Es evidente que tenemos algunas diferencias con el próximo gobierno de Estados Unidos, como el tema de un muro que México, por supuesto, no pagará.
But he is trying to meet with and have meetings with Donald Trump. Why? Because they lost Carrier, Fiat Chrysler, and Ford, and probably a lot of other companies spending money, and the peso is tanking. Joining us now with a reaction, former Fox senior advisor, not former.
Senior advisor now. Yours?
Well, I'm saying that
for your Senate run?
Because you went to the...
I think Sean would be a great senator.
You went to Trump Tower today.
I just left him.
And how'd it go?
He was my former boss on Celebrity Apprentice. It was wonderful.
You came in second.
I came in second.
You were great that year.
Oh, but we actually joked about, imagine if I had beaten Lisa Gibbons.
It would have been bad.
In the climate of the current climate. I mean,
yeah, that's true.
Both of us would have been like sleeping in the hallway. No, it was great seeing him, and Melania was so gracious. They were with Senator and Mrs. Blunt were there. They were leaving as I was
Missouri.
coming in.
Yeah.
And Senator Blunt reminded Donald something he knew, that even when he was down and out, Mr. Trump, President-elect Trump, I always said he had a chance, that he had a fighting chance, that I was a great admirer of him.
You always liked him, but
always. Melania remembered Erica's name. It was so sweet. They invited us to the White House.
Oh, nice.
It was really nice. It was that kind of visit. It was really a very friendly, very menschy.
So what do you say to all the snowflakes out there on your side of the aisle sometimes that are freaking out at everything he does?
Well, let me just reject the characterization of which side of the aisle on which I stand.
All right, you're
or
a
sit.
liberal Republican. Fair?
I think that's fair. I'm a Rockefeller Republican.
All right, fair enough.
From the old days. I think that one of the reasons I wanted very publicly to embrace the president-elect is that he is the 45th president of the United States, and he will be everybody's president. And we wish him a great presidency for all of our sakes. And it distresses me when I see how low his poll numbers are going into the inauguration next week. I mean, come on, ladies and gentlemen, you're not going to have two countries here. We have one country. You want the president to succeed. His success is all of our success. Let me specifically, and I did the one, it wasn't even nearly a discordant order. The one thing I said, you know, you and I, Mr. President-elect, have differed on the issue of immigration, and you start with the wall, a very divisive issue.
You don't care about the wall, though. You're fine with it.
And I've come to the place, I don't care. I understand the emotion and the passion that has led to the wall.
It has a door.
The wall has a door. Here's my bigger fear, Sean, and I think that you really will understand where I'm coming from. You talked about Carrier and General Motors and Ford and all correct. He has harnessed or grabbed back businesses that have fled, that were attempting to flee the United States. But now you're going to build a wall. But what happens with all of those Mexicans now that will go into work for Ford or General Motors or Carrier? I mean, we need Mexico to be a successful country if we're going to stem immigration.
But I only stop here and say there are 43 million Americans on food stamps, 50 million in poverty, and 95 million out of the labor force. Wait, America first. We can't help others until we fix our own problems.
I have no problem with that either, except
I
that
want Mexico to do well.
If you're really a capitalist free trader, we have to figure a way where what's best for the goose is best for the gander, where
but if you're the guy that lost the job,
stay home.
But if you're the guy that lost a job to an illegal immigrant who's willing to work for a low amount of money, and the competition, 8 million illegals we know work in this country now, those 8 million jobs would otherwise go to Americans.
Everything you say is true. Everything you say is true, except
come in legally.
Can you imagine the disorder when all those what's a 30-year-old Mexican guy who worked there, was going to work in the General Motors plant, and he's just over the line in Juarez. What's he going to do now?
Well, we've got
Is he
our
going
own
to get
problems.
into the drug
They
business?
have theirs. There might be some mutual